This is macOS Ken.
The next round of OS betas is out to developers, digital IDs are in Apple Wallet, and listener feedback on iPhone Pocket. It is Thursday, the 13th of November, 2025. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from macOS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Clean My Mac. Try 7 days free and use code macOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/macOSken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSken. Big Bam Beta, the developer mix. Pieces from Mac Rumors say Apple on Wednesday released the second developer betas of iOS and iPadOS 26.2. Those were joined by, hey, what do you know, macOS 26.2. along with watchOS, tvOS, and visionOS 26.2. What's next? Public betas? I'm going to go with yes. Looks like Apple is trying to Sherlock the ring light. A piece from 9 to 5 Mac focuses on a feature in macOS 26.2 called Edge Light. The piece says the feature aims to improve your video quality in low light conditions by adding a virtual ring light around the edge of your Mac's display. The piece indicates that using the Mac's Edge Light would be smarter than using a ring light. That's because the Mac itself is smarter. Using the neural engine in your Mac, 9 to 5 Mac says Edge Light can detect your face, size, and where you're located in the frame to ensure accurate lighting. And it can adjust your light, and it can actually get out of your way if you're trying to see something the light itself is blocking. The feature should work for all Macs running on Apple Silicon. That assumes, of course, that it survives the beta gauntlet. Speaking of updates in Apple Silicon, there was a change on Apple's website that was notable, though not taken seriously on Wednesday. A number of sites, including Apple Insider, saw that the Cupertino company had changed its Apple Intelligence site, dropping the M1 Mac Mini from the Apple Intelligence support page. Most sites figured that was a mistake, partly because the change only happened on the US site, and partly because Apple Intelligence features do work on the M1 Mac Mini. Must have been an oops. Checking the page a few hours later, Apple Intelligence is once again listed as compatible with M1 Mac Mini and later. Word of a study commissioned by Apple that is so easy to believe. 9 to 5 Mac says Apple hired an analysis group called the Analysis Group to look into apps in the European Union. The goal, to determine whether having competing app stores had resulted in lower commissions and therefore lower app prices for consumers, as the EU had argued it would, should, or might. Are you sitting down? The analysis group says that did not happen. According to the piece, the group analyzed the impact of 3 happenings, each of which lowered commissions paid by developers. Those included third-party app stores with lower commissions, alternative terms offered by Apple in the European Union, lowering commissions to 17% for big developers and 10% for small developers, and the introduction a while back of the Small Business Program, which cut commissions paid by smaller developers in half. Examining 41 million transactions across more than 21,000 affected apps, 9 to 5 Mac says the group found that around 90% of developers did not reduce app prices at all. Of the minority who did, the average reduction was just 2.5%. As a consumer, it's easy to feel hosed by this. 9 to 5 Mac's Ben Lovejoy did have an interesting take, though. The EU's antitrust legislation was based on the idea that increased competition ultimately benefits consumers. While lower prices seem the natural conclusion, consumer benefit could instead come through developers keeping more revenue and therefore being able to improve the quality of the products and services they offer. I will say it is an easier idea to get behind when you put it that way. Digital ID has made its way to Apple Wallet. The Cupertino company issued a press release on Wednesday announcing the feature, which uses U.S. passport information to make the digital deal. Very similar to the various state IDs and driver's licenses in Apple Wallet, the release says people will not have to hand over their iPhones. Rather, the company says users can double-click the side button or home button to access Apple Wallet and select Digital ID. From there, they can hold their iPhone or Apple Watch near an identity reader, review the specific information being requested, and use Face ID or Touch ID to authenticate. The feature is said by Apple to be in beta at TSA checkpoints at more than 250 airports in the U.S. They will currently only work as identity verification for domestic travel, though in the future, Apple says users will be able to present their digital ID at additional select businesses and organizations for identity and age verification in person, in apps, and online. That said, if you think you might need to present a passport, you definitely want to take your physical passport. Apple's release says digital ID is not a replacement for a physical passport and cannot be used for international travel and border crossing in lieu of a U.S. passport. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Clean My Mac, your solution for care and control of your Mac. Maintaining your Mac can be a big job, but you've probably already got a job. Let Clean My Mac take care of this one. It is made to make Mac maintenance approachable and efficient with features like Smart Care, offering one-click optimization for better performance, My Clutter, finding and removing duplicate downloads and unnecessary files, and Cloud Cleanup, keeping cloud storage and syncs with your Mac in check. You don't have to know how it does what it does. Just know that Clean My Mac is the tool for controlling, optimizing, and maintaining your machine. But find out for yourself. Try it free for 7 days. Then when you're ready, use my code macOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/macOSKen. Make macOS Ken all caps and one word in both of those spaces. That way they know where you heard about it and you get the discount. Get tidy today. Try 7 days free and use my code macOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/macOSKen. Again, all one word and all caps. Use code macOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/macOSKen. So the special lady friend is a TikTok fan, fiend. Maybe I should play it safe and just say user. Anyway, she was scrolling TikTok last night, then looked up at me with betrayal saying, "There's a new season of Monarch?" Turns out, yeah. She sent me the TikTok ad, which showed a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff, including a smiling Kurt Russell saying, "You ain't getting rid of me that easy." It was all captioned, "The mission isn't over. Everything changes tomorrow." Which is now today. Some kind of announcement today seems likely about a return for the Apple TV series, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. Talk of another potential Jason Momoa series for Apple TV. Deadline says the Cupertino streamer is developing the series Nomad, co-created by the co-creators of the biker club series Sons of Anarchy. Straying far on the map, though not far off topic, Deadline's tease of the show says, in the violent underworld of New Zealand's outlaw bikers, a warrior torn between two lives, two callings, and two families must decide which path defines his true destiny. The whole thing sounds very early stages. Momoa is said to be poised to star. The show's creators are said to be writing the pilot. And Apple is saying nothing. No comment from Apple for the deadline piece. An announcement from Apple that starts the holiday ball rolling. The company's extended returns window is open for the shopping season. For a number of countries, including Australia, Canada, the UK, and the US, a piece from Mac Rumors says most products purchased now through the 25th of December can be returned through the 8th of January. In some countries, including Italy, Japan, Mexico, and Spain, that window is wider. For folks in those locales, purchases made between now and the 6th of January, which I think is 12th night. Yeah, those purchases in those countries can be returned through the 20th of January. And finally today, speaking of gifts and returns and stuff like that, I heard from a couple of people regarding iPhone Pocket on Wednesday. You remember that. Apple's $150 to $230 iPhone sock from the good people at Issey Miyake. First, I learned a bit about Miyake on Wednesday. The designer, not the brand. It's stuff I know I knew at one point, having read about it in Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs, cleverly titled Steve Jobs. Revisiting that, a piece Wednesday from Daring Fireball says Jobs became friends with Miyake, had him design something of a uniform for Apple employees in the 1980s, which really didn't go over well with Apple employees. Miyake did make a kind of uniform for Jobs, though, his black turtleneck. In the biography, Jobs told Isaacson that he asked Miyake to make him some of the black turtlenecks that Jobs liked, and Miyake made Jobs like 100 of them. So okay, there's history. I did hear from a couple of people on iPhone Pocket. Jerry wrote in with sort of evolving thoughts on the thing. First saying, I'm going to make these myself for presents, just for friends though, as gifts, no lawsuits from Cupertino. Looking more closely though, being a total textile nerd and an Issey Miyake fan from afar, Jerry says the fabric is amazing and how it looks and acts. If only I could feel it. That's not going to happen, it seems. Presumably because there are only 10 stores on the planet where one might do so. Anyway, Jerry rocks, and I think Jerry knows that. Tony, who also rocks, also wrote in, catching what I'd missed about the Jobs Miyake backstory. Some background here that might be relevant, wrote Tony. The designer of this pocket is the same Japanese company, Issey Miyake, the same designer behind Steve Jobs' iconic black turtleneck. Also, what does this say about Apple's relationship with Johnny Ive? Alright, you two have convinced me. I guess if somebody wants to buy me an iPhone sock, I'll take it. Or, if you want to give me the money for it, I promise to consider buying one for at least 15 seconds. Okay, 10 seconds. Alright, 5, but that's my final offer. I may have done that wrong. macOS Ken, brought to you by me, and sponsored by Clean My Mac. Try 7 days free and use code macOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/macOSken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSken. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can find me on Mastodon, macOS Ken at mastodon.social, You can also send me an email, info@macosken.com. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Collect your tokens and let's get on to the next round.